We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we are going to be talking about the 5 best watches for car guys. I think it's fair to say that in the whole watch collecting space, there's lots of guys that are drawn to this hobby from other places, including cars, automobiles, motorsports, you name it. And certainly the watch industry is able to provide and deliver for those that are interested in both of the hobbies. Also, I'm sure there are women out there that are interested in this, so do not feel excluded because these watches are all good for ladies that are into cars as well. But first, before jumping right into that, I'd like to thank you for coming back for another episode. I really do appreciate it. Do not forget to hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe. It keeps me making videos for you. You've been really great about that, and thank you so much. Also, do not forget to leave in the comments below things you'd like to see in future videos. This was a video that was actually requested by a viewer like you, so I do definitely go through the comments as well. And you can find me on Instagram, TheRealJohnP, DelReyWatch.com. So jumping right into it, the first watch that I think is a great pick for a car guy is the Oris Audi Sport Chronograph. Now, if you know cars and you know luxury cars or automobiles, as you might call them, Audi is a manufacturer of what many would consider to be high-end automobiles. Now, this specific model is an automatic chronograph. It's made out of titanium. It's 44 millimeters, and it can be seen here on a leather racing strap. Now, we've actually had this watch at DelReyWatch.com. It's limited edition, so you don't see it floating around a lot, but you can see it on the Oris website, and I would say that it's actually very high quality. It's limited edition, limited to 2,000 pieces. So once again, you're not going to see this on everyone's wrist. So if you like that kind of special watch that you won't see on anyone else and you're into cars, I think this is a very good choice. Oris, of course, as we know, makes some very good bang for buck watches, especially today. And what I really like about this specific watch is that the seconds indicator, that's right. The seconds indicator is actually a gauge, something that you might see in the world of automobiles or motorsports. So you can see there at the 9 o'clock position, the seconds indicator is a gauge. So it gives you kind of that feel that they actually just didn't stamp a name onto a watch and call it an Audi watch. So I like that one, and that's why that one is the number 1 in this list. Now, the next watch, I'll give a specific example, but really there's a whole lineup of decades of watches by this brand, now manufacturer, is Porsche Design. Now, running into the wristwatch check a little bit late here, I'm actually wearing a Porsche Design watch here that we have available at DelReyWatch.com. This one is the date timer. Now, through history, we have some vintage watches that Porsche Design came out with, and they were made by Orifina and IWC and some other manufacturers. So you know that classic style picture here. But now Porsche Design is really coming out with their new, separate, unique watches. They have their own caliber as well, not in this specific model, but this date timer is a lot of value for what it is. It's 42 millimeters, it's titanium, the lugs are hollowed out, so it gives it really that unique, sleek, really racing feel to the watch. Considering it's titanium and it's on rubber, it's so light. I've had this watch on my wrist for just a few minutes, but you really forget that it's there. So considering it has a Sellita movement, a same Sellita movement that's going to be in entry IWCs, it's going to be in many watches for that matter, but definitely in Tag Heuer's and some of the others. When we're talking about a retail price, and certainly a price that we're charging at a fraction of what the others are at that category, at that price point, and it's titanium, I think it's a really strong buy. We had 3. 2 of them are already sold before they made it to our website. So once again, if you're into cars, you're the car guy or girl, this is a pretty good choice for you. Now, this next one is also a personal favorite because I love this particular car brand. It is the JLC Amvox. Specifically, the one we'll talk about is the original Amvox, the Alarm. Now, Aston Martin is a high-end automobile manufacturer. There's something to be said about Aston Martin, everything from James Bond driving them to people that have the money to purchase something like a Ferrari or Lamborghini, but maybe not necessarily want that kind of flashy, bright colored, very loud automobile and presence on the road. That's what really draws me to Aston Martin, is that it's very high-end, it's refined, it can really drive on the road, but at the same time, it's very understated, and those that don't know what it is, don't know what it is, but you know. So that's exactly how I see the brand JLC. You know, it's a high-end brand. It's been around, you know, just as long as something like Patek Philippe, but what they do with their watches is anything but flashy and in your face. And when you look at a watch like this, I really like that they took the feeling of that whole brand of automobile, Aston Martin, they mixed it with JLC in a perfect match, and you see it in this watch. This one's 42 millimeters. It's basically your Memovox, so a lot like a JLC Memovox, but on the case back, you have holes that really give it kind of that feeling of an automobile, let alone a race car, something from a higher-end Aston Martin lineup. A picture of an Aston Martin. There are many versions of the Amvox out there, but I love this classic with the green and yellow dial that just screams Aston Martin and classic original Aston Martin the way that I see it. What do you think about this one? I have to hear your opinion on this one because I do really enjoy this one a whole lot. Moving on to the next one, it's the Rolex Chevrolet Award Watch. Now, some of you are thinking, like, wow, are you really stretching on this one? No, absolutely not. There's some others in the list that you all know, and I set aside for the last item on the list here. But this one, I think, is unique because it allows those that are really into cars, not necessarily the highest end cars, to get into something in high-end Swiss, comparatively. And what I mean by that is this is a watch that has the Chevy logo on the back. It has a deep engraving that is the hallmark of Chevrolet, but it was used as an award watch to give to Chevrolet employees. So, you know, you don't necessarily need to be someone that only likes the high-end manufacturers, but if you're a guy perhaps that likes working on cars, classic cars, and you like that vintage watch, because this is a vintage watch now. We're talking about a watch or a couple of watches. They did this in Datejust and Oyster Perpetual that came out in the 1980s. I think it just ticks off a lot of check marks for that certain guy or lady that's into cars and watches. So let me know what you think about this one as well. Sorry about the cut there. Actually, the Uber Eats guy was delivering food to someone here in the office, and somehow they walked right in. I don't know. Someone really needs to look into that. But the next item on the list is the Giuliano Mazzuoli Manometro, and I tried my very best not to butcher that one. And what I really like about this watch, as you can see here, is that it doesn't have the name of an automobile or a manufacturer on the watch anywhere, but it looks like a car or a tire gauge, you know, something that you would actually measure the air pressure in your tires with. When I first saw this watch, I saw it basically in someone's collection here in Florida, and I looked at it, and I kind of just thought it was a tire pressure gauge a long time ago, years ago, and I was like, what is this? Is this even a watch? Because they didn't have it on a strap, and so when I saw him put the strap on it, I was actually quite impressed because they really did a good job, in my opinion, at really bringing the auto world into wristwatches without adapting and becoming fully a watch. And what I mean by that is it's almost like they took a case of a tire pressure gauge and made it a watch instead of taking a watch case in a traditional shape and form and just kind of modifying it to look like a tire pressure gauge. If you're familiar with the watch and you see the picture here, I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. So this specific brand, it's by an Italian guy, of course, you can see by the name there. It started off as a brand that was being produced in Italy. Now it's produced in Switzerland, and there's a little bit of controversy around this brand because I think it was maybe 8 or 9 months ago now, there was some big break-in at the Mazzuoli manufacturer area or the workshop. I forgot if it was the storage or the workshop, but anyway, there was a break-in, and apparently millions and millions of dollars of these watches were stolen, in that, as at least what they claimed to the police and the insurance companies. But it kind of got me thinking in the back of my head. If you see the other videos that I make, kind of, some people were calling me Detective John. I thought about this. I'm like, wow, the brand is really on a back burner now. I see a lot of these watches being moved on the gray market and wholesale. I wonder if this was staged. I don't know. Look for the article. I'll try to put a link in the description below. What do you think about the Mazzuoli watch and the break-in? And lastly, this is kind of a bonus category that I have here because people will be mentioning this in the comments, is every Ferrari watch ever made. Now, I'm sure many of you were thinking in the back of your head, when is he going to talk about Ferrari? When is he going to talk about Ferrari? Here's the thing, I kind of left it as a bonus to kind of touch on lightly because Ferrari watches have been made by Girard Perregaux. They've been made by Panerai. They've been made by Hublot. They've even been made by Cartier. That's right, Cartier had produced a quartz-operated Ferrari chronograph, I believe in the late 1980s or maybe even the early 90s. Going into there. It didn't bear the Cartier name everywhere, but Cartier produced it. It was a huge flop. It's very cool, and it's kind of an interesting little quirky piece of watch history that I think it's worth mentioning. There'll be a picture here, but once again, Ferrari is really a pretty big category because they're always switching it up over history with watches, and if you're into Ferraris, I'm sure that you know about those watches as well. I could almost make an entire video only talking about Ferrari watches. If you want to see that, leave in the comments below. So guys and ladies, what do you think about these watches? Are you a car guy? I'll admit, I'm not the biggest car guy. I have certain vehicles that I really enjoy and I have a lot of interest in, but I'll say I'm not the biggest car guy. Are any of you car guys? What do you think about these watches? Are there any other watches that any of you have in your collection that revolve around motorsports or automobiles? I'd love to hear about it. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Check out Del Rey Watch, where you can see this very cool Porsche design, in my opinion, and also you can find me on Instagram, The Real John P. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.